This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Daddy Warpig, RemipunX, and Dorrinal. We are back. That's right, Sunday, December 7th, 2014. Geek Gab. Today's episode is SeedScape Part 2. We have Dapper Swine, one of the co-creators of the soon-to-be smash indie video game hit, just greenlit on Steam. And we're going to grill him like nobody has ever seen, ask him all the tough questions, and take questions from the audience. By the way, if you don't know, I'm Daddy Warpig. You can catch me Monday through Friday, every weekday at the Kick-Ass Geekcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube. Or you can read my blog online, daddywarpig.com, daddywarpig.com. Last of all, you can follow me and my co-hosts and Dapper Swine on Twitter. I will put all of our Twitter handles in the description. Thank you for tuning in, and I want to give my co-hosts a chance to say hi and say whatever they want to say for a couple minutes. So, RemipunX, over to you.
Hi everybody, it's Remy. It is good to see you again this week. I am super excited to have Dapper Swine on with us, who could ask the more digging into them questions that we had about SeedScape last week. If you guys have questions and you'd like to get them asked, definitely ask them in the YouTube chat. If that starts going really fast, just like we saw last week, I'm a little bit slow, shoot me a tweet. It's at RemipunX, and I will make sure that everything gets answered for you. And I'm done.
Hey, Dorrinal.
Hey everybody, it's Dorrinal. I'm back after a couple of weeks. I don't have much else to say, just happy to be here. Love chatting about Geek and new things. I'm really excited to learn more about this new game. This is my first experience with SeedScape, so looking forward to the Q&A here.
And Dapper Swine.
Yes, sir.
Just introduce yourself. Say hi, or...
Well, I am. My name is Jason Brown. I basically am Dapper Swine, or I was before I sort of pulled Jennifer into it. And yeah, I'm working on all of the main stuff with SeedScape. So I'm doing all the programming, most of the planning. Although Jennifer sort of, she started helping me out with planning and how gameplay should be assembled. But for the most part, I can answer any question regarding those things because it's all in my head.
And is Dapper Swine the name of your company?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I honestly, I did not know that. I just knew the name of the game, didn't know the name of the company. All right, let me explain one thing real quick to the audience. The format of the show is we take questions off of Twitter and we take questions off of the chat. So if you have anything to ask Dapper Swine or the co-hosts, please put it out there. Remy is quite ably has taken over the responsibility of keeping track of the questions, so even if we're not answering it immediately, we will get to it as soon as we can, assuming it didn't get lost. However, because I'm the host, that means I get special privileges, including kicking off the questioning, and I will push your questions to later in the show. And this is what I want to talk about. Without mentioning individuals involved or whatever, it came up on Twitter today. An individual was criticizing the video games industry because they felt like the game mechanics in nearly every game were virtually identical, and that therefore the video games industry lacked innovation. Now, I have some opinions about this that I will be more than happy to express at some point, but I wanted to, I know that's a vague and generic question, but I want to throw that out to Dapper Swine. Do you think that, one, every single game has the same game mechanics, and two, what is your opinion on the state of innovation in that specific area in the industry?
That definitely is an interesting thing for someone to posit, because I guess it all would depend on the soup you swim in, because if you're playing a certain type of game, or let's say you only play the big AAA games that get commercials on TV and things like that, then I could see maybe where you'd think that all games have the same mechanics, in the sense that, these days most AAA games use the, tap X to not die sort of things. You know what I mean?
Quick
And
time.
but that is a pretty narrow section of games. I wouldn't say that there's no innovation. I would say to somebody like that, I would say look deeper, because there are plenty of games that do things differently. I would ask what exactly do they have in mind when they're thinking that, or what do they think is missing? I mean, when I think of like innovating in games, sometimes I think about making new genres, but that's difficult because it's hard to make a genre that doesn't exist. And also, I'm interested in things like controller hardware. That's something that interests me. But those are being made as well. You've got the Oculus and even sort of those touch controllers, like what the Steam machines are going to be using, or things like that. I don't know. I don't see a lack of it.
Speaking of controllers, one of the things that a lot of people seem to find acceptable that kind of irks me is, and we're talking about innovation, so I want to bring this up because it's kind of interesting. iOS and Android multi-touch screens have become a really big thing, to where they're one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing segment of video games industry, and you have to do really, really different things to be able to get a control scheme running on iOS. And I have never really found one, at least for a Twitch game, that I have enjoyed for very long. I mean, some of the games are just astounding technologically, but I don't find the controls to be all that interesting. They have introduced 2 OS versions ago, so this was a year and a half ago, an interface kit. It's an API as part of the OS specifically for video game controllers. So you can build a shell that you could slip a phone into, or an iPod Touch or whatever. I'm speaking specifically here of iOS. I'm sure Android has something similar. I just don't know about it. You can slip the phone into a controller and have something that looks like, a Vita or one of the other mobile game systems, instead of just tapping on the glass. And so when you're talking about innovation, they are not only is multi-touch itself give you new options for control schemes, but they are working to expand that to make it more accessible for hardcore games, more accessible for hardcore gamers, and I think that is cool.
Yeah, that's one way to do it, is to actually alter how you're like holding and using the controls. I would say the other way to go would be improving it via software. So you say, well, I have this first-person shooter on a tablet or on a phone. It obviously is not going to work the way that it would work on a computer or with a controller, so maybe we change how the mechanics of the game work to where we almost like make an offshoot genre, so it's not really first-person shooter anymore, but it's something that's close and still fun and different.
They kind of did that with Infinity Blade, to where it is full 3D, and you move through it like it would be a first-person shooter, but instead of interacting with full movement like you would a controller, you have different gestures that you make on the screen to signal blocking or attacking, things like that. So they adapted, and the game was made from the ground up for a mobile multi-touch platform. They just created a new control scheme for the limitations of the platform. And I do find phones, if you're trying to do Twitch real-time gameplay, to be really limited. But that is a good question. Are you planning on? I know that SeedScape is initially going to be a PC release. Are you planning on bringing it to any mobile platforms?
That would be an interesting idea. The problem with that right now, because if I could see into the future and say, oh, down the line someone's going to help me do that, then I could say, sure, I would definitely consider that. If it's just going to be me working on the project, up until the very end, and then I'm like, it's still just me and Jennifer, and then someone says, hey, are you going to port this? I'm going to say, probably not, because it's so much work and I've already done so much work myself. And I would want to do it right because I can't stand half-baked ports, and I don't want to be that guy who puts out a half-baked port. So I would really have to put like several months into just making sure that it works well and that it runs okay. I mean, a lot of things would have to be cut back because right now in SeedScape, it is kind of memory hungry in a way, or more memory hungry than you would expect for a game that looks the way it does because the world map is so large. Just memory footprint wise, it would not fit right now on a mobile device.
John, Remy, I'll throw this out to you if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the discussion about controls and everything. So I wanted to ask specifically about SeedScape. In what ways, what sort of controls and mechanics were you inspired by when you made the game, and in what ways, if any, have you innovated on those designs?
So most of the controls for SeedScape come from Animal Crossing, and the reason why Animal Crossing is such a good, or well, more specifically, Animal Crossing after the GameCube version, because of course the GameCube version was just controller-based, but the first one on the Wii used the pointer for the cursor, and you could also move using the joystick. So in the same sense, and this may not be final, of course, but in the same sense, you have a cursor that you can use with your mouse, and then you can, of course, use your keyboard to move around and things like that. So it almost works identically to Animal Crossing in the sense that you have the pointer and you have the ability to move, and those are kind of separate. We don't have controller support in the development version we're working on, but it's something that I want to add, and I do have access to a wired 360 controller, so I will be tooling around with that in the future to see what I can do in terms of making that feel good.
Okay, to use Windows, to develop on Windows, you use an IDE. Do you use that same one to develop for the 360, or do you have to use one of the development kits that's the special built 360 box?
I'm not sure about how that works in terms of putting testing the game on a 360, for instance. I do know that because we're using the Unity engine, which deploys very easily to different consoles and things. I've never really looked into that because I've always sort of aspired to be mostly a PC developer, sort of like. I mean, I suppose you could say my aspirations are to be like, I would like to have the polish and the quality of like a Nintendo, but I would like to be known for being more of a Blizzard, if that makes sense.
Did you?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry. I was going to say that totally makes sense.
Okay.
Do either of you have any other questions?
I'm going to admit I'm being super quiet for the first half of the show because every time I go to your Steam page and the music starts, I'm gone. For the entire 2 minutes and 12 seconds that the video runs, I'm just like, do, and I like sing and hum the song while I wander around and do stuff in my house. So I need to learn when I need to do other things to not go to your page because the music auto starts, and then I'm just like, oh, I'm lost.
Yeah, we've almost the winter track is actually almost, well, it's nearing completion, and I do know that our musician is going to be releasing that one next, which will mean that we have summer, fall, and winter tracks all available to the public just to listen to before the game is out. I don't know what he's going to do for spring yet. I don't have any even work in progress versions of that to listen to for myself. It'll be a surprise.
Is that track available for download if people wanted to, download it and listen to it?
The summer and fall tracks are currently available. If you look up, and I'm going to spell his last name, but on Twitter, his name is Chris, and then his last name is Sinnott. You look him up. He has a Bandcamp page, and you can actually listen to the SeedScape music that he has finished, which is only 2 tracks right now, but he's going to be adding more as they complete.
Dorrinal has gone to listen to the music because I can hear it coming through from his end. It's just wonderfully catchy, and it just really hooks you right in. Even listening to it around other people and things, it's like, what is that? And it draws you right in. So it's great.
See, I know some people might consider that weird, that you would want to download and listen to video game music, but I have on my computer a single track of music from Neverwinter Nights, and actually almost a dozen different tracks from Rise of Nations, which just has some incredible music. So
that's not weird though. I mean, I have
Tavern Daylight.
I have the entire Grim Fandango soundtrack, just because it's like amazing. It's like amazingly good music, and it just happens to be in a game.
I thought the Seventh Guest shipped with an entire messed up CD, unfortunately, because it had all the songs as one track instead of multiple tracks for each one. But it shipped with 2 CDs, one of which was the game, and the other one of which was the soundtrack. And I have tried very, very hard to get legit copies of those songs, but they are using all of the resources I have available. I can't locate even an image of that CD. It's been very frustrating.
And it's true, because some music, you don't want to hear some music outside of a video game. Like,
Yeah.
it only works if you're in the certain situation or whatever else. But it depends. I think games where there's actually less sort of interaction, like Grim Fandango is an adventure game, so it's like there's not really a big action sequence situation where the music only fits there. And it's sort of the same with SeedScape, where it's really just like the music has to be able to stand on its own, because you could just be walking through the forest doing nothing for 5 minutes, and it's going to be looping like twice during that time. So it has to be good.
If I listed him as a composer, Chris Sinnott, would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sticking the link to his webpage in the video description so people can go check it out for themselves after the show.
Yeah, he'll definitely appreciate that.
And I hope I posted it here in the sidebar for us, but Soul Brother Cab actually asked on Twitter about, is there going to be more steel drum and samba music coming? So I hope that covered that question for you. If you have more, definitely shoot me a tweet, and I'll make sure that the follow-ups get asked for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't say for sure what sort of instruments will be there. I basically give Chris a very long list of adjectives and descriptions and like feelings, and then he just makes music out of it and surprises me. So it works pretty well, actually. You just wind him up, and then you just let him go, and then when he comes back, there's a beautiful song, and it's perfect.
It seems that you have found a really solid team for creating the game. Do you think that it's turned out as well as it has, and has had the positive response that it has because of how well you guys work together? It seems, and maybe it's just from the outside and being idealistic and being really excited about it, but it just seems that you guys are really very much on the same page with where the game is going and the kind of feel that you want it to have. Everything from the music to, piggy tail wiggles to how the trees fall and everything. It just seems that you're like a perfect working unit.
Yeah, well, the way it works so well is because, as I said, with the music, you just wind Chris up and give him some adjectives, and then you send him packing. He comes back a couple weeks later, and you have music, and you're like, oh, I have no complaints about this, and this is exactly what I wanted. So that's one aspect completely out of the way, and it's not trouble or anything. And then with Jennifer, you just say, it's like, I'm looking for, like, I need an owl or something. Like, I need a postal owl. It needs to be an owl that delivers the mail, but I'm looking on Google image search, and I can't find any owls that look right. And then she comes, like, 30 minutes later, and she's like, how about this? And it's like, yes, that's exactly what I had in my mind.
Toot is amazing. Toot is so the best.
Yeah, but that's, like, how we work is there's no progress check in most cases where it's like, well, don't you continue on that. Let me see what you're making. Everybody just knows what to make, oddly.
I'm gonna wait because I've got a question that kind of ties in but kind of jumps tracks too. This is another thing I wanted to talk about that irritated me this morning about game design. So I'm gonna wait until until you two have asked all the questions you want.
Well, let's see here. I'm going to kind of start touching on, just because we always seem to run out of time, and we do have a lot of audience questions, so I'm going to start jumping in with those. Black Eye Sheep asked if there's going to be a virtual economy or a passive trading post built into the game.
We're actually working on the start of the economy right now in terms of getting the owl fleshed out and working. Jennifer just gave me some shipping box graphics so I can get the shipping box system working where you throw your vegetables in and the owl carries them off to the city to sell them. He brings back a letter that has money attached to it, and that's how the basic economy works. But I would strongly like to put into the game some sort of a trading post where you could actually have maybe your friends, when they join into the game during multiplayer, they would see your trading post and just be able to buy stuff from it as if it was a store, like as if it was an NPC store. So they walk up and they see like that you have an apple like on this countertop or whatever, and when they interact with it, it's the same thing as if you interacted with an NPC's shop items, where it just opens up a menu. It's like, hey, do you want to buy this? And then the money goes straight to whoever owns that store. So you could set up little farmers markets for your friends as well.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. I was telling Jen like how excited I am to be able to play the game with my daughter, because her and I have very different gaming styles, but I think it's going to fit well for both of us. Then another question that is something that sounds like I would ask, but is actually coming from Oliver Campbell. He asked, can I ride a cow or any suitably sized animal? But seriously, though, cows. How cute. If you guys haven't seen the cow sprite, like, go look at the...
Tumblr.
Where am I staring at the cow? Yeah, it's on the Tumblr. Sorry, I have so many tabs open with cute things in it right now. But go to the Tumblr and look at the cow. And Toot. Look at Toot, too. Toot is the owl and is just insanely cute. But are we going to have sort of mounts and that kind of thing, or?
This is where Jennifer can get carried away and crazy. The first time I ever saw the cow, the Sprout was riding it, and she was like, "Look at this," and I'm like, I don't know if we're even going to do that, Jennifer. She's like, "Look, it's awesome," and I don't know. That would be. I definitely want you to be able to ride like a horse, because I know in Harvest Moon that was a sort of a big thing where you'd get a horse and then now I have a horse that I can ride to get places faster. But if it's really just a matter of swapping out graphics, then I mean, because I would like to add like a rideable horse for the purpose of maybe even like carrying things. But really, if it is just a matter of swapping out graphics, I guess you could ride a cow. There's no reason
Cows
not
are
to.
really cute, just so you know.
Yeah, Jennifer draws them very well. Every time she draws like an animal, basically, I'm always very blown away by just how well it's done. Like she showed me a chicken that she drew a few weeks ago, and it was just like perfect, exactly what I would have wanted as well. that must be her strength, I think.
She makes all things super, super adorable. It is her superpower. Jared Williams asked in the YouTube chat, he said, how many different items can you build in the game?
I assume this means like structures?
I think so. I'm going to assume so, and if not, he can holler at us in the chat and say we're wrong.
Well, I would say you could build, right now you can build just a house because that's all we have in the game at the moment, but obviously we want to, we're going to have barns and enclosures and things like that. It's not so much like a Minecraft where you're going to put tiles down to make a thing. It's more like you put down a foundation for something and it requires material, and it's more of a static object. So when you build an enclosure, it's going to be of a fixed size, but at the same time we'll give you different sizes if you want to build one of a different size.
Kind of like SimCity.
Yeah, a lot like that. And yeah, we're going to have houses, in barns, enclosures, obviously things like chicken coops, and then of course you're going to be able to place down furniture, but there are things that also count as furniture that aren't really furniture, like machines that will refine certain materials into other things, which you can place inside of buildings. So yeah, you're going to have plenty of stuff to actually sort of stamp out your own little area and just make your own home or giant factory or whatever.
And obviously Sprout is sort of an eco-friendly little guy. I mean, he's very tied with what's going on with the land and everything like that. And I asked Jennifer about it a bit just because I am a mommy and I'm also a big bleeding heart, and if things that I care about die in a game, I'm a mess. So how are you thinking things with the farm animals and things like that, and the animals that you interact? Obviously there's bad guys, there's going to be things that we have conflict with that we kill and they drop things and we want to do that, but if I forget to feed my cow for 5 days, is there going to be a negative impact to my cow because I'm a bad, neglectful person?
Yeah, I actually I heard that show and I was like, in my mind I was thinking, oh yeah, why not just kill the cow? What's wrong with that? And then I was hearing Remy like going, no, that can't happen, and Jennifer's like, I don't know, I have to ask Jason. Because from what she knew, I was like, oh yeah, sure, why not just like, yeah, if you don't feed the cow, it dies. It's a cow. But when I specifically I heard the show, and just the show made me think maybe there's a different way to do it. Obviously, it has to be some sort of downside because you have to feed your cows. But also, if I want to make it so it's like you have to try really hard to neglect your animals, in the sense that you don't have to like walk up to each and every one every day and stuff food in its mouth, or else it dies. They're going to be pretty autonomous. They'll probably be more intelligent than any animals in like any Harvest Moon game, in the sense that if they're like really hungry, they'll probably just leave the barn on their own and eat stuff that they find. So like, but basically, if they're not hungry, they'll stay put. If they're hungry, they're probably going to leave the barn or like break out of the door or something, and you'll find them on like the other side of the world eating stuff, and you're like, oh, I should have fed them because now it's all the way over here, and now it's going to be a big issue getting them back, or maybe they'll just run off and you won't find them again because you just neglected them that long. But at that point, if you've been neglecting them that long, then you probably don't care if they run off anyways.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt real quick because my actual question ties right into that issue, and let me explain how. The game is really, really charming and really, really cute, and the problem with killing the cow was that it seemed to go against the whole sort of aesthetic, the whole feel of the design of the game to be a whimsical, sort of charming thing. I understand, listening to Jennifer last week, that there were some aspects of the game that were not necessarily directly in line with that, just Sprout himself seems to have come to define the entire game when that was not necessarily what was meant to be. So my question, to ties into that because, again, this is something I ran across earlier today that just ticked me off so bad I wanted to get a chance to talk about the theory and idea behind it. The same person who talked about innovation, advanced the claim that most developers don't know how to create emotionally resonant human experiences. And the reason why this irritated me is twofold. One is that it seems to implicitly present the questioner as the expert who is here to save developers from their own massive ignorance, which gets under my skin. That just really aggravates me. And two, most people who actually put together a decent shipping game know how to create a mood, because just what you're describing with SeedScape, the art, the music, the mechanics, they all fit together to create this whimsical experience, this charming, sweet experience. And in my mind, in my opinion, that is an emotionally resonant human experience. You don't have to have Oscar bait speeches in order for a game to create emotional resonance. And so the notion that game developers don't know how to do this is bullshit, because all of them have to do it. Even Carmageddon, which is about driving race cars around on a track and killing people with them, created an emotionally resonant experience. It created the experience of brutality and cruelness and all of that. They knew what they were doing, and you can point to any game that people, is shipping and people can buy, has to have some kind of coherency. My actual question, now that I've got my rant out of the way, my actual question is this. I'm not sure what your background was as far as, learning programming and becoming a developer, but is creation of mood that is deliberately evoking feelings in the audience when they interact with your game, how big an element in design is that?
Well, it is one of the biggest parts of it. It's one of the most important things that you can do is create a mood, because if the game doesn't have a personality, like if it doesn't, like that's the only thing people remember about the game is how they felt when they were playing it. I mean, they'll remember basic things like, oh, I liked that character, he wore a cool shirt or something, but for the most part, they look back on a game and they'll think to themselves, oh, like, remember that made me feel really happy when that happened, or that's not something I have really an issue with. First off, the music and the art are doing a ton of that work for me because all of that plays a part in it. But even then, I also have, I have a background in almost everything, so I also have like a writing background. So if need be, I can inject as many feels into the game as I really want to, even just through the dialogue if I need to. For instance, we already know that. I don't know if I said this in the developer diary that we wrote, but like Toot is going to be like, yeah, he's like a cute little postal owl, but at the same time, should you ever be lucky enough to catch him when he's off duty, he actually has some like sort of important things to say to you in terms of like you'll come to realize like, oh, he's like really concerned about you. He just wants to make sure, he's like always asking you, are you okay? Are you feeling relaxed? Are you working too hard? And there will be a lot of characters like that where every character can invoke a different mood in you, and you can sort of determine by yourself who you don't want to talk to. Like, well, I don't want to talk to that guy. Every time I talk to him, he makes me feel like he just makes me feel uncomfortable. So I'll go talk to this guy instead. Or this guy's he's way too, downtrodden. I can't talk to him, but I can talk to, this woman here because, she's always bouncy and energetic, and these are things I'm capable of doing just through dialogue alone. And these are also things that are affected by how you handle the gameplay. Like, I remember playing Harvest Moon, and what would happen when your cow died, because it could die in Harvest Moon, is it would kind of be like the next day would happen. You'd get up in the morning, you'd leave the house, and then one of the NPCs would actually come. He'd come up to you and he'd say, like, you'd never see the cow die, but he'd say to you, listen, such and such, whatever you named the cow, passed away last night because it was sick. You need to take better care of your animals. And in that sense, it's never graphic because they never show anything. And it's almost worse because you never get to see the cow again. Like, it was the last time you got to see the cow, but you didn't know that at the time. And they just sort of nail you with it. And they're like, well, you screwed up. See you later. And that sets a very depressing mood for that particular moment. So I'm well aware of all those things. So I'm trying to keep them in mind, as hard as it is when you're also just handling the very robotic stuff about programming a game.
I consider that whole opinion to be offensive to game developers, because even incompetent game developers know they're supposed to do that. Whether they succeed or not is a different thing. But this person is acting like, this is some gigantic revelation that he's bringing developers, and I wanted to smack him.
I mean, there may be some developers who can't grasp that, but those are like the games where they're just universally bad, I think. A bad game will invoke absolutely nothing except, like, angry indifference. Like, I don't care about any of this. This is crap. Who's enjoying this? I'm done. But even, like, mediocre or passable games accomplish making you feel something, because someone wrote the story, so presumably they cared about the story, even if, like, maybe the rest of the team didn't carry out creating the game well enough. Someone had to handle the story, and if the team didn't work well enough together to really capture the whole feel of the game, then that's too bad. But that's like to me, that's development 101. Is you want your game to have a certain feeling to it. It's almost like picking a color palette. Like, you need to stick to your palette, and you need to stick to the feelings that you're trying to push in your game as well.
That's one of the interesting things that Grand Theft Auto 4 did really, really well, is that different situations in the game had very, very strong color palette choices that were, consistent. So it wasn't just that day and night had a light difference. They didn't just turn down the lights. They changed the color palettes, and then when it started raining, they changed the color palettes again, and they used a color palette that they had derived from those sort of oil paintings that they use as their box art that you see on the loading screens and things like that. And without making it cell shaded or anything, the entire game was shaded to evoke kind of that oil painting, and it was very subtle. I've never heard anybody else talk about it but me, and maybe that's because I played it so much, but I noticed that that was part of their design, and I really appreciated the subtlety they put into that. All right, I'm gonna shut up and stop talking and let Remy start asking questions from the audience.
Okay. We have a follow-up from Jared Williams. He's the one that asked about creating things in the game, and he wanted to know if there will be any item crafting along with building actual structures in the game.
Yeah, there's going to be item crafting in the sense that you'll both have to refine things. So, for instance, you'll get milk, and you'll have to... I mean, the process of turning that into, like, cheese will probably be a simple process that doesn't have much involvement or not really multiple steps or anything. And then the cooking system will be a bit more involved and hands-on, more like a game, and that's where you'll be able to cook dishes. The idea behind that I would like to have some sort of stat buffs or skill buffs or something like that for eating certain meals, because the thing I hate most in a game where there's like a cooking system is it's like, oh, here's all these different meals you can make. This one heals you for 800 health. This one heals you for 810 health. This one heals you for 820 health. It's like, ooh, look at all this wonderful variety I have. Why would I even want to do this system? It's pointless. I'd like to make a system that people want to take part in. I don't know about like crafting tools and things. I think of your tools as being more like static, like, oh, you have this iron pickaxe? Well, that's your iron pickaxe for life until you get a better one. So I'm not sure yet how that'll work. Some of that stuff is more like, it's almost more like balancing questions in a way, because I don't know what items we're going to need until we get there. And most of the plans are for just the general layout of the game and how the systems work, like just overall, how is the economy going to work, and overall, how is the NPC town going to work, and things like that.
And how, with the cooking system, is what you cook and the things that you make going to vary based on the character that you're going to be playing? I know there's differences between them, but how deep do those really go?
Yeah, the mushroom character will absolutely not touch any dead mushrooms. No. But
no cannibalism.
Yeah, but I don't think I don't know if we're gonna have too much in the way of racial cooking type things. I would like to have racial abilities, but that's gonna be sort of separate from cooking. And as far as the cooking goes, it's gonna be sort of a free-form system in the sense that I plan on making it so that every food has like a tag to it. So, like, maybe tomatoes have like this tag called mashable or something like that, and so do strawberries. So you say, okay, I want to craft a sauce right now. Okay, well then pick something from your inventory that is valid for this. Okay, well fine, I'll make a strawberry sauce. And it's like, okay, well you just made a strawberry sauce and you've got some spaghetti, so there, now you just made spaghetti and strawberry sauce, which is absolutely disgusting, but that's up to you. That's none of my business.
That's awesome, though. I like that. Now, we've got a lot of questions sort of about the process of actually creating a game. Just to get the last of Jared's questions out, what is the most difficult part of building a game from a coding perspective?
It's the fact that nothing's as well planned as you think it is. Even you can plan things out very well, but as you start building the game, rewrites of the code are inevitable, and you realize that your plans are going to change. There's almost to the point where you feel like there's no point in planning at all, but obviously there is. But in the moment, you feel like there's no point to it unless you spend like an enormous amount of time planning, and you have so much under your belt already that you know everything that's going to come at you, and you can actually plot the entire course of the game on paper. I don't have that much experience under my belt to where I anticipate everything I see coming. Though I have, for instance, I have a ton more experience than I did when I pushed out my first game, so I already know that I know how to handle things like all this data management I'm going to have to slog through when it comes time to, save the world tiles and save the inventory, and I've accounted for most of that. It's just a matter of, like, the planning is just a nightmare sometimes.
And then I have some questions from Ebola Chan, and I am not tech savvy, so bear with me if I sound like a bit of a derp. He asked, what kind of subversion are you doing, Git or SVN?
So, this is an interesting question because there are sort of two camps of this. I would just like to make it clear, if you're working on a team with multiple programmers, you need to use some sort of versioning software because you've got two people now. There's people messing around in the kitchen. You don't know what they're doing while they're in there, and you need to be able to go back and say, we need to fix that because someone messed up something that I wrote and then they changed, and I don't know how they changed it, but we just need to go back. We need to wipe everything and start over, but start over preferably at this later point. I am the only programmer. I know everything that has changed, and I have knowledge of every single script in the entire project. I do save regular backups, but aside from that, I don't do any hardcore versioning because I just don't feel the need, and I've had no issues when I haven't done that yet, because again, there's nobody else is messing with my script files, and I have knowledge of everything. I know what's changing, and I generally know how to fix anything I mess up, and I've never once had to go back yet. But if I was working with a team of other programmers, no question I would use version control, because that's playing with fire at that point.
Thank you for explaining that in a way that I, even though I had no knowledge beforehand, completely understood your answer. That was great. Ebola had another question. Why use Unity? And he said, speaking from a person who works with source from Unreal. So I guess he's comparing the two. What made you decide that Unity was the best to work with?
Actually, Unreal's been sort of duking it out with Unity lately in ways that I enjoy, because I actually like when both engines feel threatened by each other, because it means I get better features out of whichever engine I'm using. And the only reason I really chose Unity to start is because I already knew some C#, and probably the most used language in Unity is C#. At the time, Unreal didn't have the ability to code in any sort of .NET language, so I think it was pretty much just C++ or get out. But they did recently add like this wrapper, so you can use C# to code in Unreal, which is great, which means I could switch over to it and generally know sort of what I'm doing. But then the other thing is, I'm not a fan of the royalties and how they work with Unreal. So the actual engine is cheap to use, but it's like a subscription service where you have to pay for it monthly. And even if I paid for it monthly for like a year, which is about the time it'll take to make SeedScape, it would be a lot less than Unity. But then they also want 10% of your profits for the game, and that'll end up adding up to more than what Unity costs. And I always think in that long term, because I'm very cheap. So long term, Unity is just like the best price for me, and they're not going to shave anything off the top, which is kind of important to me.
Coincidentally, Microsoft is going to add .NET libraries for deployment on OS 10. I'm not saying this, just to urge you to port, but so people who are used to programming in C# can now produce something that will run on Apple's OSs as well. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and I'm not even a loyalist at this point, because like I said, especially Unreal and Unity, they've been duking it out for the past couple weeks and maybe the past couple months, and only good has come from it. So at this point, I would say pick either one and you'll be completely great. You're golden, but I'm just using Unity right now because I know it, and switching at this point would be it would just be a step backward, because now I have to relearn a different engine, and you know how it is.
Mm-hmm. We got another question. Evanon asked, and people are obsessed with hats. Hats are a thing.
Yeah.
And Evanon said, I still want to know about hats. Hats for the animals. What, I guess, customization are we going to have for... I mean, I just look at Sprout, and I just want to stare at Sprout all day, and Sprout makes me insanely happy. And I stare at Toot, and I'm super happy. And I don't really think about customizing my characters or my animals or anything else. But other folks obviously are very interested in that. So what plans do you guys have? And is it going to be with the first release, or is that going to be something that's added into later where we can go in and sort of mess with our look a bit?
The current plan for the way this works is we're going to have items that are called an accessory. You can only wear one accessory that just goes in your one accessory slot, but it's not like a small thing, or I should say it doesn't have to be a small thing. Like, it's not just a bracelet or something. An accessory is an entire look, So I gave this as like an example. Let's say you have, I don't think this will actually be a real thing, but let's say that there's a Dapper Swine accessory, and what that would mean in theory would be that your Sprout now has a top hat, a cigar, maybe he's got like a pig nose or something. But it's more than just a hat. It's an entire look to it. So someone in the Steam forums was asking about dressing up as a cow, and we're like, yeah, that would be an accessory where you have horns and an entire like cow suit. Jennifer did a
Clearly cow obsessed.
Yeah, well, Jennifer did a concept art of Sprout in a cat suit. I think she may have even posted that up on playseedscape.com, which is the Tumblr for it. Those are an example of like what an accessory will be, but it could also just be a hat if you wanted it to just be a hat.
And Serge asked, what different breeds of animals are there going to be, or is it just going to be this is a white cow with brown spots? Will different breeds of animals, different cows, give different or better milk? Different chickens give different eggs, etc.?
I'm not sure. We'll have to see if that's something where we're definitely gonna have different varieties, because Jennifer's kind of like a workhorse in that sense. Like, she'll just crank out art, and she'll especially like variations. She's really good at that. So we like to add variations to everything. I don't know if the variations will be mechanical, like in how it makes the cow function or anything like that. It could be. That's one of the things I haven't really planned beyond like, oh yeah, a cow gives you milk. Like, that's about as far as I've gotten with cows. A cow will give you milk. So those are things like, because not everything is planned. Sometimes you have to make something up on the spot when you get there, and that's one of those things where I'll make that decision when I get there, but we're not really there yet.
I'm so excited about the cow, you have no idea. And I rarely tell people to go to Tumblr, but this is going to be that rare occurrence. If you go to seedscape.tumblr.com, you can see Toot, you can see the cow, the cute little chicken, and you just be a very, very happy person. They're just insanely precious and adorable and make me super excited, way more than words can ever express.
If hearing the link in the show here makes you confused and you just don't know how to type it, the link is actually in the video description. All the links to the Steam page, the Tumblr site, Chris Sino's website, the OST itself, all those links, the Twitter handles of everybody on the show, all those links are in the description of the video. And so they're all right there. You don't have to think hard. You just have to click. So I encourage you to go.
Evanon actually just asked a question that we touched on in last stream a little bit about obtaining meat. He was smart to say not asking if you can murder your cow, because everybody knows I love the cows. Don't hurt the cows. But when it comes to that sort of thing, I know Jennifer and I were both kind of like unsure, what that sort of process would be, because there's sort of these cute little plant-loving environmentalist creatures, though you guys don't have like a political slant to the game.
Right.
Is there going to be harvesting of meat? Like, are we going to eat bugs? Or that could be kind of delicious if I was a sprout.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the way that whole food chain works. It's almost more like a gameplay thing. Like I have no vegetarian inclinations personally, but like if the game ends up like that, it's just because, like you said, it doesn't make sense to slaughter the cows, it doesn't make sense to kill the chickens, and so forth. As far as meat goes, the only thing I can say is you'll definitely be able to eat fish when you catch them. I think that's probably something that Jennifer didn't even think about. She was probably thinking more about like just going out and slaughtering a mammal in the forest. But we're gonna have fishing, and you'll be able to eat the fish that you catch. I almost said collect, but yeah, I mean you'll be able to collect them too. So, but We do have like little woodland creatures, but they're almost more visual, like squirrels and things. They'll just kind of you'll see them out of the corner of your eye, and they'll just run up a tree and disappear, or something like that. You're not going to be able to kill any of those, so it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get any meat to eat.
So what you're saying is you don't have a shooting and a cover system, is what you're saying.
No, not really.
So we'll all be pescatarian. That's totally cool. It'll be like my house. And sorry, Evanon, I didn't mean to get your gender wrong. All blue squares are boys in my head. I'm the worst. And one person, and they actually suggested chocolate milk cows, which is amazing. Last question that we've got time for, and I think it's the last one that I saw in the chat. If we missed any, I'm super sorry, you guys. You can always go over to the Steam page and ask more over there as well after we're off air. But Ebola asked, are you going to be doing some kind of DRM?
No. I mean, aside from what Steam decides they want to do when when we send them the executable for the game, they're going to do whatever it is they do to the game, but we're not putting any DRM on it. So if we ever sell a version of the game that's not on Steam, you just play it wherever you want. I mean, I know that's not necessarily like the best business practice in the world, but at the same time, I have no energy to put DRM in the game, and I know nobody has the energy to deal with DRM, so it's like, fine, we both win. Do whatever you want. And I don't really agree with DRM anyways, so, yeah.
Well, I think that is it for me with the audience questions. Thank you so much for answering them for everybody. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Did you have any questions yourself, Remy? No.
I have like 94,000, and we have like 4 minutes, so yeah. I'm gonna contain my fangirl squeeing.
Well, if you need to,
really excited.
If you just need to splat all over the wall and just be like, I need to ask this question, then you can always ask me or Jennifer. Jennifer has her Ask FM, but I also have one. It's just ask.fm/Dapper Swine. That's for people to ask any questions. Of course, they ask inappropriate, weird questions all the time, but if you want to ask SeedScape questions,
I
you
get
can do
those
that too.
too. I haven't heard that we're dating yet, so I was a little disappointed in that one. But yeah, I get the wacky questions too.
No, I get everyone thinks me and Jennifer are married. I don't know why.
Congratulations! I didn't know. Hey.
Neither did I. Thank you.
But yeah, I will definitely. I have been containing my Tupperware of spaghetti the whole stream, so I'm pretty proud of myself.
See, and we were talking about this before the show started. I don't watch streams, so I have picked up kind of what that means, but I have no idea. I mean, I know who was sort of involved, but I have no idea the exact.
Well, it comes from the Chan, from 4chan, and it's basically when you act like a huge derp, that's my word, in front of someone that you admire, either because she's a very attractive lady or because they are somebody who is creating something that you really want and makes you bounce around in your kitchen like a hyperactive 12-year-old. So.
Oh, someone actually did have a question a long time ago, and I just want to... It was an amazing question. They said, if I drop a beat on the ground, will it start music? And I so badly want to say no, but it sounds like a great...
That's such a cute idea.
It sounds like the worst, terrible, best, worst, etc. idea.
So maybe. That's a definite maybe.
I don't know. I really want to... Maybe I would have to make it hard to do. Like, you have to drop like 50 beats, because then you're like asking for it. But who knows?
Okay, I added your ask.fm to the video description so people can get that there. And I'm afraid that we are out of time. That's all the time we have for tonight. So if you want to turn down your headset or something, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Let me give you one last chance, though, if you have anything else to say to the audience before we go. Mr. Swine.
No, I mean, I just thank you, everybody who voted for the game on Greenlit and who supports the game. We haven't really gotten any negative words against us, or maybe I'm just blind and haven't seen them, so that's incredible. And the fans of SeedScape and Dapper Swine and Jennifer are like the best fans in the world.
Anything to close out with, Remy?
I just want to thank Jason for coming on and talking with us, and everybody who's taking part in the SeedScape project. I am so extremely excited about that. And again, thank you for taking the time and talk to us tonight. And thank you everybody who watched and asked questions in the chat. You guys are what makes this fun for us.
Okay, and SeedScape is coming out second quarter of 2015. All right, let me tell you folks what's happening. I am your host, Daddy Warpig. My co-hosts are RemipunX and Dorrinal. We have been talking with Dapper Swine, who's one of the co-creators of the next smash indie hit on Steam, SeedScape. Links are in the video description, so go check it out. See how awesome the game is sure to be. This is Geek Gab, the Geek-tastic Gabfest. Every Sunday night, 7 p.m., an hour of all geekery, all fun, no work. Catch us every Sunday night, and catch me, your host, Monday through Friday on the Kick-Ass Geek Cast, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Half an hour of news and views. You can also read me online at daddywarpig.com. That's my blog, The House of Geekery. And finally, you can follow me on Twitter at daddy_warpig, at daddy_warpig. By the way, all of the Twitter handles are also in the description because I love you guys, and that's how awesome I am. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank Dapper Swine for coming on the air. And I want to reassure you, in case you're worried, that even though we, your hosts, are signing off, we will be back.